Democrats in the US House of Representatives have set the stage for what could be their biggest battle during President Joe Biden's administration. The ruling party is proposing to raise taxes on rich Americans and big corporations. That would roll back part of the cuts that Donald Trump and the Republicans call one of their biggest achievements. Paolo Montecillo has the details.
New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez attended this year's Met Gala in Manhattan to deliver a statement. Emblazoned in red on her white dress were the words, "Tax the Rich."
It's really about having a real conversation about fairness and equity in our system, and I think that this conversation is particularly relevant as we debate both a budget and reconciliation bill.
She walked the red carpet as her Democratic colleagues in Washington unveiled their plan to raise government revenues. They want to do that by rolling back part of the tax cuts passed during Donald Trump's administration for big corporations. The plan by House Democrats would increase the top corporate tax rate to 26.5%. That's up from 21%. They also want to raise the top individual income rate to almost 40% from the current 37%. And they're calling for a 3% surcharge on people making more than $5 million a year. The changes fall short of what President Joe Biden had promised during his election campaign. But the White House has still expressed support for the plan that's expected to raise $2 trillion. That would partly cover Biden's $3.5 trillion proposal to increase spending on healthcare and climate-related projects.
The bottom line is, in my view, we're a step closer to truly investing in the American people, positioning our economy for long-term growth, and building an America that outcompetes the rest of the world.
Republicans oppose the plan, saying it would make American firms less competitive. Democrats don't need their votes because they control the House and Senate, but their majorities are slim. That means party leaders face the challenge of keeping moderate members on board and in line. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, let's bring in Joann Weiner in Washington. She is a tax policy expert and a professor of applied economics at George Washington University. Good to have you back with us, Professor. It was interesting to see what Democratic Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez was wearing at the Met Gala last night, a gown with the words "Tax the Rich" emblazoned on it. It really does summarize what the US House Democrats are actually proposing, doesn't it? So what do you make of what they are proposing, a tax hike on big corporations and the very wealthy?
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be here again. I think it's a very interesting tax plan because it is being portrayed as raising, applying mostly to the wealth. Increasing the income tax, the top marginal tax rate back to where it was before won't do much because most of the really wealthy people make their income not through income, but through wealth. Raising the corporate tax rate doesn't put it too far out of line with the OECD. We learned from the Trump tax cuts that when the corporate tax rate went down, there was not a real boost in investment and wages of workers were not increased. So I think there's some view in Washington that what we tried in 2017 didn't work. So let's go back to doing things the old-fashioned way. We spend money and we pay for it through tax increases.
Yes, let's revisit what was actually passed in 2017 under Donald Trump. There was a huge suite of tax cuts, but the signature policy was cutting the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. Obviously, 35% was regarded as one of the highest corporate tax rates in the OECD. It was dramatically slashed. Now it's going to go back up to 26% for those companies earning $5 million or more. Is that an appropriate tax measure, or do you see that hurting business in any way?
Well, companies probably never really want to pay taxes, so any tax increase will be seen as bad. But to go from 21 to 26.5 is not that big a deal. The effective corporate tax rate is well below 20%. So there are lots of ways for companies to not pay a lot of taxes. But I think the big part is that there's an impression that corporations are not paying their, quote, fair share. They only pay about 1% of GDP in corporate income tax relative to 7 or 8% by individuals. So there's something to be said there. The other thing, the economic issue, is that when the corporate tax rate was cut sharply from 35 to 21, we sadly did not see a big boost in investment nor an increase in wages that theory said should have happened. So I think there's a little bit of skepticism about what happened with the big tax cut. So why don't we try to get a little bit more revenue from corporations when we need it?
Okay, Professor Joann Weiner, we'll have to leave it there, but a pleasure as always to get your analysis. Thank you for that.